At this time, I would like to call the April 28th, 2022 Diversion Board Authority meeting to order, please. Roll call.
Mr. Peterson.
I am here.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Dardis.
Aye.
Mayor Carlson. Mr. Hendrickson.
Aye. Here.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Here.
Mr. Ebinger. Ms. Preston.
Here.
Mr. Campbell. Mrs. Sherling.
I'm here.
Mr. Steen.
Here.
Mr. Olson.
Here.
Mr. Seljevold. A quorum is present.
Wonderful. I will do my best to monitor those of you in virtually. If I don't hear you, please feel free to interrupt. With that, item 2 on our agenda, approval of prior meeting minutes. Looking for a motion to approve, amend, discuss.
Move to approve.
Is there moved and seconded? Thank you. Any discussion regarding the minutes? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Approval of the order of agenda. I don't believe we have any amendments, so the agenda as presented is before you.
So moved. Mahoney.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the approval of the order of the agenda? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Consent agenda. Presume team, we've had a chance to review our consent agenda. If so, look for a motion to approve, amend, discuss.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney.
Aye.
Mayor Dardis.
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson.
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn.
Aye.
Ms. Preston.
Aye.
Mrs. Sherling.
Yes.
Mr. Steen.
Yes.
Mr. Olson.
Yes.
That is everyone.
Wonderful. The consent agenda is approved as presented. Item 4 on our agenda, regular agenda, Joel Paulson, Executive Director Report. You have the comm, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just want to update some of the recent happenings. We've had a number of media highlights and events occur over the last month. The first one I want to highlight for the board is the P3 Water Summit, which took place in San Diego. John Shockley and myself presented with Mr. Aaron Schneider from the Corps and Esther Diaz from the Red River Valley Alliance. I felt the panel was very well received. There are a lot of folks that were looking at our project as kind of the hallmark or the way to do water resource projects in the P3 environment. It went very well. We also had Mr. Bakigard, who presented with Mr. Benson at the North Dakota Conference. That is available to watch at that YouTube link. We also did a legislative briefing this week for the North Dakota State Legislature. Had fairly decent attendance, a few people online, a number of folks that showed up here in the City Commission chambers. I really just kind of went over a status update with them. A lot of appreciative legislators that, probably heard some information for the first time since we haven't engaged the legislature since the legislative session, with the exception of water topics overview. And a few of the water topics folks said that were there said it's great to be able to engage the entire legislature and tell them what's going on. So, and then we also had tours for the joint Association of Civil Engineers and Society of Professional Engineers Conference that was here in town. So a number of engineers from across the state had the opportunity to come in. We took them out with a tour bus and showed them the structures and the work that's currently ongoing. A few major accomplishments for the program this month. We got approval from the North Dakota State on the SRF funding for the Clean Water Loan, and that was a $51.6 million loan. We were anticipating that in our financial plan and our funding plan, so it would just kind of checked another box and strengthened our financial plan that way. And then we've had some major website improvements. So we've from some of the recent consultants that we hired with the Flint Group and with Amy and some of our other communications team, they've really been making a lot of progress on website enhancements. And incidentally, I've been actually getting some third-party comments about that, about how great our website is. So it's good to see. And I think it reinforces that we needed to do a refresh of that website. few P3 updates for you today. NTP2, which is really the notice to proceed for construction activities for the developer, is currently estimated to be June of 2022. We are still planning that groundbreaking event. We did move it from the June time period to the August time period to account for some scheduling changes that the developer had. So make sure you mark that on your calendar, but I'll make sure to get the board invites and get that on your horizon coming up. And then with the Corps of Engineers, we've been having a number of working group meetings and really surrounding the coordination around the P3 activities, more so on the environmental side, but those have been going well too. So below, I just have a picture from the conference. We had Mr. Shockley moderating, Mr. Schneider, myself, and Esther there. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Any questions? Mayor Mahoney.
Joel, with us slipping back on the groundbreaking ceremony, are we slipping in our schedule? It just seems like it's taken forever to get to your every next step on this.
Yeah, there has been some slippage in the developer schedule, which led to the groundbreaking being pushed back a bit. We did actually have a conversation with their executive leadership group yesterday. Some of the reasons behind that really are probably surrounding workforce and hiring employees, and then also the delivery of equipment. There's been a much longer lead time than anticipated on delivery of equipment and construction machinery, just due to global macroeconomic conditions. So we'll certainly keep an update on that, but overall, I don't think it's terribly concerning to me given our long horizon for construction and knowing that the developer has built in float into their schedule to accommodate for those sorts of activities. So,
Well, if you need any help from Commissioner Pipcorn, I can send him over there to help you if you want, Joe.
if you guys want to drive a scraper around, we'll hire you and put you on one for your 12-hour shifts. So just let us know.
I'm in.
Mr. Paulson, at what time do we get worried?
I think if we continue to see delays for more than an additional 6 to 8 months, I think it's time to really take a look at that substantial completion schedule. In talking with the Jacobs staff, who has done a number of P3 projects and are very experienced in this space, it's fairly typical for developer teams to take additional time than what was expected in their baseline schedules to get their operations up to speed, bring the correct people in. And of course, working with that group, we're a part of that discussion too. I mean, we want them to bring in qualified people that are experts in their area of expertise. And so in some cases, we've been actually saying, well, no, we want somebody that meets these qualifications. And so it creates more of a challenge for them to find the right people that meet the requirements of the project agreement and the technical requirements that we've defined. And so bottom line, I think it's something we're managing right now. I'm not terribly worried at the moment. And it is fairly typical for large projects like this to take some additional time to get up to speed. But it's certainly something that we should monitor, and the board should be, kind of asking questions on a monthly basis of how these things are proceeding, and we intend to provide that information to you. So.
Thank you, Mr. Paulson. Just a point of reference. Commissioner Sherling and I spent the last couple of days in Bismarck working on some county activities. One of the items they brought up was regarding the turnover in the state legislature. Interestingly enough, we're looking at a minimum of 23% turnover. Projections are calling more for a 30% turnover. So I think we're satisfied with what we've done out in Bismarck, but it'll be interesting to see the number of new faces coming through the door that will have to be educated as to what we're up to bring them up to speed, to make sure they know that the project is valid. We're going, everything is chugging along. But again, the learning curve on this project is steep. So we have some work ahead of us out in Bismarck, and that's okay. But we just have some work ahead of us out in Bismarck. Mr. Paulson, anything further?
I'll just add to that comment, Mr. Chair, that I received a number of comments from legislators that appreciated our presentation and our engagement with them. And they had suggested maybe doing a quarterly or a twice-a-year update for the entire legislature, much similar to what we did. And so I think that'll be beneficial. We're also working on an onboarding packet for new people to the project, whether they're board members, staff, or consultants. But I think we could also use that onboarding packet for new legislators that get voted in, get that material to them so at least they get a baseline understanding of what's going on, and then they'd get those regular updates as we move through construction. So
All right, is there anything else?
that's all, Mr. Chair.
Outstanding. If not, we will move on to item 5, council update, Mr. Shockley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one brief item for the board today. That is a resolution requesting that Cass County go ahead and acquire the rights of way for the stormwater diversion channel along the existing roads that are going to be closed down as a result of the construction. The board may recall approving an MOU with Cass County in which there was a process laid out where the authority could request that just prior to the commencement of construction activities. And now with the award of the P3 contract and moving forward with construction, we need to make that request. And so just asking the board to formally approve that request and then have Cass County commence the appropriate actions in accordance with the MOU between the county and the diversion authority.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Diversion members? Question, discussion, a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second, please? Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? If not, let's do a roll call vote on this, please.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Preston? Mrs. Shirlene?
I did see the microphone for Commissioner Preston show some activity. Didn't hear anything, though. So, Commissioner Preston, are you still on?
Since we lost everybody on virtual, you want a break?
Okay. Commissioner Sherling, same thing. I'm seeing activity.
Yeah, everyone on virtual, do you want a break? Is it from our media people? So do you want a break? That's up to you.
I think we have to take a timeout. We don't have a quorum.
All right.
We will take a momentary hiatus for those of you watching at home while we determine our technical difficulties and resolve them accordingly. All right, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We are back on. Commissioner Shirley and Preston, we had a vote in progress regarding Mr. Shockley's item, and I'd like you to be able to voice your opinion on that, if you would, please. Don?
Mrs. Preston? Mrs. Shirlene?
I didn't hear the presentation. Arlette and Roger and I, we lost you when you were talking about our meeting in Bismarck.
Okay, so you never even heard the motion.
No, no idea.
So can we just repeat the motion and then we'll go from there?
So Don, if you could, please. This is in regard, we're still, Commissioner Shirley, Commissioner Preston, this is still item number 5, which is the allocation of Cass County in terms of purchasing land. Don, if you'd read the motion, please, that would be wonderful of you.
I do not have it in front of me. John, do you have it?
Yeah, the motion would be a motion to approve the resolution requesting that Cass County acquire road rights of way for the stormwater diversion channel and associated infrastructure pursuant to the MOU between Cass County and the Diversion Authority.
And again, as a reminder, this was item 5 on our agenda. Commissioner Shirley, Commissioner Preston, do you feel comfortable speaking? If not, you could certainly abstain or just not vote.
Well, I'm certainly. Was there any objection to this?
No.
I'd like to know if there was.
No, Commissioner Shirley, it was uneventful.
Yeah, I don't know why there would be any objection, but I certainly would vote in favor of that.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston, your thoughts? I'm guessing she is disconnected. Well, with that, I think we can proceed.
Mr. Steen?
Okay, Manager Olson would like to weigh in.
There you are, sir. Oh, you're anonymous.
Okay. I will vote yes.
Done.
That is
Recorded?
everyone.
Okay, thank you. Again, apologize for the informality. Mr. Shockley, anything further?
No, Mr. Chair.
Outstanding. With that, we can move on to item 6, which is our U.S. Army Corps update. And I understand Terry's not here, so get to my agenda. You may proceed, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can pitch in for Terry quick today. Real quick update. We're going to give a video update after this that'll cover the projects already under construction. So items 1 through 3, we'll give a brief update on those as in a couple minutes. Want to focus probably more on items 5 and down, just to give an update on where the bid process and award process is for the Corps. They've been busy this last couple months. They've got all 4 of their projects bid and are working towards awarding them right now. They were able and have achieved award for the Red River structure. They awarded that to Ames Construction. That project, the pre-construction conference was this week, so they're staging to begin work on the Red River structure site. So that's great news. Then the 3 in red are projects that they have open bids. They did receive really good bids on all 3 projects. They're working through the award process. We anticipate them awarding Drain 27 within the next day or so. And then the Drayton Dam and Southern Embankment Reach SE2A should be awarded later in May or early June. So all 4 of the Corps projects they plan to bid and start construction this year are all in that process and moving forward. So again, great news from the Corps' perspective. The item 9, the Southern Embankment designs, they're continuing to do their design work on the remaining segments of the embankments, working close in hand with our team and our lands team on trying to advance the right-of-way needs and keep the process moving forward. But all of those are in various stages of design and are all moving forward very well. Additionally, the Corps is assisting us on the P3 side, providing their review and input on items related to the P3 construction as well. So with that, I can answer any questions, and if you don't have questions, we can move to the video that gives a quick construction update as well.
Any questions? Any questions? If not,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
please proceed.
For the April construction update, we are highlighting the areas of the program where activities have started picking up following winter shutdown. The first site is the Diversion Inlet structure. Over the winter, the Ames crews have been preparing the site for the delivery and installation of the steel tainter gates. The close-up views of the structure show where the gates will seal and slide along the concrete walls, and also where they will be anchored as well. In the foreground, you can see the pieces of the steel gates that will be assembled and installed on the structure. This view is also looking through the inlet structure towards the future diversion channel. The second site is a Wild Rice River structure. The crews are working on the concrete abutment and pier walls and also preparing for the delivery of the tainter gates. The plywood forms you see will produce the center pier wall for the structure. The overall site view is looking north toward town, and the river will flow through the structure from the lower left to the upper right of the screen. The third site is the I-29 grade raise project. Industrial Builders is currently working on the interchange bridge on County Road 18 over I-29. They have demolished the existing bridge and are working on the foundations for the new structure. In early May, they will also begin working on the intersection of County Road 18 and 81 to raise the roadway grades and tie them into the Oxbow-Hicks-Mbaki levees and the I-29 grade raise project. Here we are looking north across County Road 18, and in the background you can see the I-29 bypass constructed last summer.
Wonderful. I think, again, this just helps us establish a sense of scale of how big this project really is. Bigger than a bread box, so to speak. Anything else regarding information from the Army Corps? Any questions, commissioners, team members? If not, proceeding on to item 7. Mr. Olson, still on, sir.
Yes, I am. And I'm going to turn it over to Amy. for our outreach presentation.
Wonderful. Hey, there you are.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I just have a few quick updates for you today. We've recently completed several videos. You just saw one, of course, and I tucked another one into this presentation. We've also started pushing out some of the faces of the Diversion series. So if you haven't seen the first one, that's on our YouTube channel with Lisa Breckestran, who's a land agent. And I think it turned out really nice. She's a great story, and it's good to be able to share that side of things and kind of put some faces to what's going on. The website is coming along great. All the existing content is updated. We just need to delete a little bit more on that library page, and we should be set with just regular updates until the new site rolls out. We had the chance to do some collateral materials and by pitching Mike Rowe, and I have another slide on that. I'll get into a little bit more detail. We were also able to add a scheduling tool for our social media, so that's going to help us be a little bit more efficient, and I'll be able to start providing some better demographics and analytics as well based on that. And then noticed some outdated information, so we're working to update both on the City of Fargo website and other places where we're finding old logos, old information, since of course things have evolved quite a bit over the years. We have a number of things in the hopper too. Another Faces of the Diversion piece, this one with another land agent, Lisa Kildee. Mr. Olson graciously took an afternoon with us and helped for a couple videos we have coming up, kind of an update on lands, as well as looking at him as one of the faces of the diversion and his lengthy history and experience. And then we're just looking forward to a couple of conferences and meetings coming up next month. So the Association of State Floodplain Managers, Mr. Paulson and Greg Thompson will be presenting at. And we actually did a recording, so that will be available to attendees as well. And then for the Financing America's Infrastructure Conference, we've been asked to share a case study, and that will be coming up at the end of May. So this is one of those quick video clips. I thought it might be interesting for you to have the chance to see those gates a little bit more closely. So each gate, if you're not aware, came on 5 to 6 semi-trucks, so more than 15 to get them here from down south, and they weigh 46.5 tons apiece. And so it's kind of exciting to get this brief look at them coming on site and the progress ahead. And then I mentioned meeting Mike Rowe. The Red River Valley Alliance was able to be one of the sponsors, which gave some of them the opportunity to meet Mike Rowe and do a meet and greet in person and pitch the producer, because we really think that Dirty Job should be filming the FM area Diversion Network. And they're already booked for 2022, but if the show continues in 2023, we are hoping we might be able to get Mike here to get dirty with us. So he left his producer with a fun piece that helps sell him on why we were so awesome and he should be here. And then just one final slide, of course, save the new date for the groundbreaking. But beyond that, the Red River Valley Alliance is looking at, they're in the early stages yet, but some type of a community event that would coincide with this, since the groundbreaking won't necessarily be a great opportunity for the public at large to be involved, but looking at a theme on how we're taking the river back and not being so afraid of what it might bring, but instead it's going to be an important part of the community again. And so I expect we'll see more details on that as well. So that's all I have for an update this month, but I'm open to any questions.
Wonderful. Mr. Olson, anything to add, sir?
No, Amy did a nice job.
Wonderful. Any questions for our public outreach team? If not,
Roger, why didn't you take him down to your farm and show him some dirty work?
We did go to his farm.
Well, I think Amy came down to the farm and we did some video. So
I was hoping to see the videos with you at Rutter's Bar that night.
I missed that invitation, Mayor.
Anything further for public outreach? If not, we'll progress on to item 8. Ms. Smith?
Good afternoon. Eric Dodds, A2S. Jody asked if I could give a brief update on the land status report in your packet. I'll just maybe talk about a few things here, and hopefully Peggy can scroll through as we go. The main overall page, you're very familiar with this, of course. You'll notice we are getting close to about 800 parcels acquired if you add up the green and the red colors, and so continuing to make good progress. The next page zooms into the upstream mitigation area where you can see we have a whole bunch of parcels where we're in negotiations. Flow easement offers went out last month and their land agents are busy meeting with property owners. We are getting some progress made. Have had probably a couple dozen flow easement parcels where people have agreed to the valuation. We're continuing to work on that and still have several months ahead of us. The next page talks about environmental monitoring easements. This is an ongoing effort where we're trying to secure some easements for monitoring environmental conditions. And then the subsequent pages of the report just drill in a bit more detail. We have reorganized this a little bit this month, moving the diversion channel page back in the report, as now our focus area is on the southern embankment and the upstream mitigation areas. The last thing I would mention is the last page of the status report does pull out and separately mention the asset lands. And so, of course, over time, we have acquired a variety of asset lands. Many of these are small remnants or pieces of a field that the property owner asked us to buy the full field when we maybe only needed a portion. Some of the other parcels are in the upstream area where, again, a property owner asked us to buy it in fee, but we only need an easement. And so we've broken that down. You see there's a handful of parcels in the upstream mitigation area on the right-hand side, and then a variety of parcels on the non-UMA. Again, these would be along the channel or the southern embankment. With that, stand for any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Dodds. Commissioner Sherling, anything to add?
No, Mr. Dodds did an excellent job. Just call upon Commissioner Campbell and Mr. Olson to report for their respective acquisition boards.
Any questions, Diversion Authority, for our good friend, Mr. Eric Dodds?
Thank you.
If not, anything further, Ms. Smith?
No.
Nothing to add?
Next item.
Outstanding. Next item on the agenda. Please proceed.
Okay. So, as many of you are aware, the need for the RIMP program was identified in 2019. The board approved the 10-year forgivable loan program in May of 2020 for up to $5 million to fund 2 projects. We have issued several loans totaling $4.2 million. The Cass County Joint Water District Board approved an additional loan this morning for $680,000. Today, we're asking the board to approve an additional $10 million. The Finance Committee approved the next phase of this yesterday. There's no impact to the 2022 cash budget as this was included in the rebaseline. And just asking that you approve the motion. There you go.
Wonderful. Mayor Dardis, anything to add, sir?
No, Mrs. Smith did a nice job in that presentation. It was a unanimous vote by the Finance Committee to accept her recommendation of moving an additional $10 million into this mitigation program for a total of $15 million.
Any questions, Diversion Authority members, or discussion or a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second, please?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Ms. Preston? Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Mr. Olson?
Yes.
That is everyone.
Wonderful. Motion passes. Item B is the 2022 Fargo Work Plan. There we go. I was going to ask who's going to present this.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. As we discussed this item as well in the Finance Committee meeting yesterday, and this also passed with a recommendation to the board as well. Just for the board's perspective, late last year, we passed a resolution as far as a process for how we were going to work through the in-kind work. We started with the city of Fargo. We're working on the similar agreements with the two counties. This is the first outcome of that. We've been working with the city, obviously, throughout the whole process, but inside this context, this will be kind of our first step through the revised policy. Nathan and his crew have been continuing to develop projects. They have 3 that are ready to go to bid this spring. In the course of finalizing those plans, we were updating the work plan, and there were some things that we wanted to bring in front of you. One in particular is just a cost escalation that we need to work through the board. But I wanted to give you some context on the 3 projects. There's 3 that the city is finalizing. The first one is 19-C. That's the Woodcrest area of Fargo. It includes also a lift station replacement as well. This project, again, started as 2 separate projects in our original work plan. Through the city's engineering process, they combined those 2, took the proposed project from including 3 river outfalls, combined them into 1, added some additional economizing to the project, and when everything was said and done, actually reduced the overall cost of the project, still delivering the same scope, the same protection. Just were able to economize the overall plan and design to reduce the scope or reduce the cost some. So there's about a $3 million savings to the overall program there. The second project is labeled as FM22-C1. That's 2 lift station replacements, lift stations 55 and 56. Again, similar process. The city did do economizing process through their engineering group. We're able to reduce some of the items. However, there was a couple of items that increased costs there. One was the overall constructability of the sites. There were some restrictions there that the contractors were concerned about, so we're anticipating there'll be some additional costs there. And also some of the inflationary costs hit this particular project harder than the others. So in total, this one, there's about a $3.5 million increase from the original project. Just, again, the same scope of work, just the escalation of costs. The third project is FM22-B1. That's another lift station project, lift station number 15. Again, through the city's engineering and design process, they were able to determine that instead of replacing this lift station, they're able to modify it to meet our needs and meet our requirements. So again, through that reduction, they were able to reduce the overall cost of this project by about $1.5 million. So with that, we're looking here for the approval of the board to move forward with the city's revised work plans, and then they'll step these 3 projects into the bid process here this month. So I think there's a proposed motion there, Mr. Chair. There you go.
Wonderful. Any questions, authority members? If not, discussion, a motion?
Go ahead, Dave.
I'll make the motion.
Well, second, I just want to compliment our engineering team for working hard to work the projects a different way and save the project overall $1 million. So you have to think a little innovatively. And actually what part of it was is that some of our citizens finally cooperated with working with on this. And I want to thank the residents that did to help us out on this particular project. So thank you.
And Nathan yesterday said we have 5 homes left to buy out in Fargo, and that the in-town will be completed in 4 years. So that was good news. I think those are all, we'll be happy when all those markers are met.
Wonderful. And as I was reviewing my packet, I noticed you do this every time, but just for those folks watching at home, you can see the in-depth analysis to how they got there, and you can actually dig further into our agenda packet if you're so curious to find out the nuances that Mr. Borboom and team have gone through to get where we are. And it's a remarkable explanation. I realize that there's quite a bit of time spent on the red tape and paperwork, but the reality is I think we need that for justification, certainly long term. So I'm grateful, as the mayor and commissioner said, I'm grateful for your time, and obviously to the citizens of the Fargo-Moorhead metro area. Commissioner Pepcorn.
One thing that really helped us when Woodcrest neighbors found out that you lived in that area, a lot of the prices went down a lot. So we want to thank you a lot for that.
They went down when I moved in, Dave. It's not. I'm one of those guys, It's like, Christ, that's that Peterson fella. Any other questions, discussion? If not, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Dr. Mahoney?
Aye.
Mayor Dardis?
Yes.
Mr. Hendrickson?
Yes.
Mr. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mrs. Sherling?
Yes.
Mr. Steen?
Yes.
Mr. Olson?
Yes.
That is everyone.
Motion passes. Thank you. Mayor Dardis, anything further to add?
Yes, just one thing, Mr. Chairman. That is that yesterday it was announced that the new city of Fargo representative to be on the Finance Committee would be Mr. Steve Sprague, city auditor and acting finance director for the city. And so we welcome Mr. Sprague. He's been around a long time. A lot of us know him and know how very capable that he is. So it was great to see Mr. Sprague join us, and Assistant City Administrator Mike Redlinger introduced him to the group. As you can see, the other two items were action items that we had on the Finance Committee. And I would note that I too would like to compliment the City of Fargo and their engineering department for the work that they did when you have a net reduction of $976,940 on these three major projects. That is something we can be all very proud of. So kudos to them. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we can, with that, move on to item 10. So we shall. Item 10, other business. FMDA common terms describing a comprehensive project. Mr. Paulson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your packet, on page 116 through 118, you'll find some terms that some of which we've been using for quite some time. Other ones were used in legal documents and had similar meaning or similar, use within the authority. And we just wanted to provide this to the board. We are going to use this internal with staff and consultants, but this really cleans up the reason why we're using certain words and kind of directs some new words to be used for certain items. And there's a couple here I just wanted to note for the board on page 117. If we could, Peggy could move to the next page. We have a couple of defined terms that the board probably hasn't heard before. But we'll understand as soon as I kind of explain it. So the first one I want to draw your attention to is the SWDCAI, which is an acronym for the Stormwater Diversion Channel and Associated Infrastructure. We've added stormwater on there as a result of the work that we did with the WIFIA loan. It is considered a stormwater channel by the EPA. And so, we have started to use that term when we refer to the diversion channel itself. So I just wanted to make the board aware if they see that is what that means. We will continue to use SEAI, which is the Southern Embankment and Associated Infrastructure, similar to what we've been using for quite some time now. But the next two terms are somewhat new. The first one is the Local Flood Protection and Associated Infrastructure. And really that term LFPAI is going to refer to all the in-town work in Fargo and Moorhead. So when we start talking about that component of the overall project, you'll see that acronym representing that term. The next one is the MFAI, which is the Mitigation Features in Associated Infrastructure. And that is a term used to define all of the mitigation requirements. And you can see we've listed all those out there. That are required either from the settlement agreement or from our environmental commitment documents. And so we're kind of defining that as an overall element of the project. So we really have four elements: the in-town, the mitigation features, the diversion channel, and then the southern embankment itself. So just wanted to basically brief the board on that. This is for your information. I didn't want to start using these terms and not have the board understand what we're having. So provided this little cheat sheet, and the more we use them, the more integral they'll be in our communications. But
Mr. Chair, a bit of question.
Commissioner Hendrickson.
Thank you. Joel, is this going to be centralized where we can have access to it? I might have missed that.
So we are, as I mentioned earlier, Mr. Hendrickson, we are preparing onboarding documents, but really they're kind of just content documents that we'll deliver to all the board members, existing and new, as they come and go. We'll have an acronym cheat sheet in there for the test that we will administer for you. So
I'll be skipping that days.
Commissioner Steen.
Thank you. Joel, just maybe stretching you a little bit here. So under the MFAI, there's a bullet here called Lower Otter Tail River Restoration Project. Is that something new? It's new to me, so I'm just curious.
So, Commissioner Steen, we haven't talked publicly that much about that restoration project, but it is included in the DNR permit requirements for us to address the Lower Otter Tail restoration. So this was something we've been working with the Corps on. I'll give a brief synopsis of the issue. I think the Lower Otter Tail basically is in Wilkin County, and it connects to the Red River at Wahpeton Breckenridge. There's been a lot of changes to that river that were man-made or man-induced over the last many decades. A lot of those were part of other Corps projects that basically work to straighten out the river. And as part of our ravine mitigation for the construction of the Red River control structure within the ravine environment and the changes that we have, as well as the wild rice structure and some of the other work that we're doing within river channels, we're required to mitigate this, certain number of miles as a result of the impacts that we have. And the Lower Otter Tail River Restoration Project was a project that was identified that would be eligible to meet the requirements of the mitigation that we needed. So we have been in discussions with the Corps of Engineers about that. It is something that we're looking at potentially finding some funding at the state of Minnesota or through the federal government to basically take some of the river channel and make it meandering and add reconnect oxbows, those sorts of things, in order to meet the mitigation requirements in our environmental commitments. So
Is there a price tag on that?
I will look to Mr. Nicholson or Mr. Barthel on that. John,
Just shocking.
Or John.
So much for our engineers.
There's actually, pursuant to the permit requirements with the Minnesota DNR, we negotiated out a formula. They take the length of the river that needed to be corrected times a certain amount per foot, and the amount is about $8 million and some change. And it's just a DNR permit requirement. We can't do anything about it. We don't disagree with the calculation because it's based upon project cost and footage. So
I understand. I know some people who live in that area. Actually, some in Otter Tail County that are going to be affected by this as well.
Correct.
And is there land issues involved with the changing in the river? Because I know some of the borders, some of the land's bordered. The river actually has bordered some of the lands down there. So do we have land acquisition issues now that we're going to deal with this as well?
No, our only obligation is to make payment. Buffalo Redwater Resource District is actually taking on the project. The total project cost is about a $50 to $60 million project, and our obligation was to fund a portion of it as calculated by the Minnesota DNR. Yeah, but you are correct. There are land acquisition issues. When the river was straightened, many of the farmers along the river started farming up to the straightened riverbank, and so as the project reinduces the turns and twists through the river, the meanders, they will have to acquire some land, but that's not our responsibility. Our responsibility is to provide funding.
Funding for mitigation. So this project, the Corps is going to take on this project, is not considered part of the cost of our diversion then? If they're spending X dollars of Corps money, is that part of the $700 or some odd $1 million allocation?
So there is a local share. The $8 million is our local share. There is some Corps funds that will be put into the project of the total $50 million. I don't believe that of the Corps portion that comes out of the $750 million. I think that comes out of a different Corps program. Then there will be state of Minnesota money put into the project. And I'm not sure where Buffalo Red will get the rest of the money, perhaps through grants and costs, but there's a complex financing formula for that project, but once again, we only have to pay a small portion of it.
All right, thanks.
Anything further, Mr. Paulson, regarding your list of acronyms?
John, following up on that and following Rick's stuff as well, the Lower Otter Tail River Restoration Project, we actually just had to pay for part of the mitigation. It's not really considered part of the diversion. It's just a mitigation that we had to do to help the DNR, and the $8 million is done. Once we've done that, that's our obligation. How long they take to do it, we have nothing to do with it.
Correct, but the one thing that we do have to have is they have to have commenced the project before our project starts to operate, and we've been in discussions with Buffalo Red and Minnesota DNR about what that means, and they've taken the position that as long as a element of that project is under started construction or some type of land acquisition that's going on, then we've met our qualification. And you are correct, Mayor, it is not part of our project. It's a mitigation requirement that was contained in the Minnesota DNR permit.
And just for future meetings, when that obligation is finally, quote, fulfilled, could you report back to us so we know that's no longer hanging out there, if you don't mind? Thank you.
Absolutely.
I'll just add, Mr. Chair, because this is a good discussion, just to identify these mitigation projects. Oh, if you want to go back up. So the Lower Otter Tail, the Drayton Dam is similar, so that it really has nothing to do with our project. It is a benefit to the environment to remove that dam and replace it with one that has better biological connectivity within the Red River. So that is another one that is contained within the Minnesota DNR permit. That one actually is moving forward. The Corps just bid that. So they did acquire a contractor to begin that work. I do believe those bids came in under as well. And then the other part is we are getting mitigation credit for the integration with the Cheyenne diversion in the Red River or in the FM diversion. And so that is basically those three components along with the Drain 27 wetland project, which we're moving forward with this year. That's covering our environmental mitigation for the most part for the project. And those are the big ones. So they're all kind of the same situation.
Commissioner Sneed?
Just one last comment. I know this isn't our project, but it's interesting. I'm talking with individuals down there, as you alluded to it. This is a project to put curves back in a river that 50 some years ago the Corps straightened out.
That's
to make it better for the environment 50, 60 years ago. Just interesting concept how we spend money in this country. All right, thanks.
Mr. Paulson, anything further?
That's all I have.
All right, acronyms are fun. Item 11 on our agenda, which is next meeting, is May 26th, and then we have item number 12.
So moved.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
All those in
Mr.
favor,
Chairman?
please signify before that. Mayor Dardis.
If there's going to be a written exam on these acronyms, I respectfully request that I sit between Mr. Shockley and Mr. Paulson.
The Diversion Authority does not advocate cheating. So with that, any objection standing adjourned? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.